Arlen Voss stared at the abandoned workshop, its metal walls rusted and dented from years of neglect. The air around it was thin and cold, the kind that made a person shiver even in thick clothing. Most species avoided this place. Stories of strange lights, odd sounds, and sudden energy surges had spread through the moons like wildfire. Traders whispered that the workshop was cursed, that the previous owners had disappeared without a trace. But Arlen had no fear. Humans had a habit of going where others would not. And that was exactly why he had bought it. The landing pad was cracked, but solid enough for his small transport ship. As the engines powered down, he felt a small thrill. There was something about abandoned places that made him feel alive. They held secrets, and secrets were always worth finding. He stepped out, boots crunching against the gray dust. The workshop loomed over him, tall and rectangular, with faded alien symbols etched into its walls. A thin layer of frost covered the entrance. The metal door was heavy but still functional. It groaned when he pushed it open, letting out a cloud of cold, stale air. Inside, the workshop was dark and quiet. Broken tools lay scattered across tables, and panels blinked erratically with fading power. Dust floated in the shafts of light coming from broken windows. The smell was metallic and old. Arlen pulled out a small flashlight and began to explore. Every corner was filled with machinery he didn't recognize. Some parts hummed faintly, like they still remembered their purpose. Others were completely dead, lifeless metal waiting for someone to breathe life back into them. As he moved deeper, he noticed a section of the floor that didn't match the rest. It was smooth, polished, almost like glass, and it was warmer than the surrounding metal. Curious, Arlen knelt and examined it. There were tiny seams along the edges, almost invisible unless someone was looking for them. He traced his fingers along one of the seams. A faint vibration traveled up his hand. His scanner beeped softly. Something beneath the floor was alive. Arlen's heart beat faster. Most humans would have left at this point. The stories, the warnings, the unknown, any normal person would have run. But Arlen was not normal. He was a scavenger, a finder of things others had given up on. He had worked on old starships that had been abandoned for decades. He had fixed machines that no one else could. And now, whatever was down there, he wanted to see it. He retrieved a small plasma cutter from his pack and carefully removed a section of the floor. Sparks flew, and the metal groaned, but he worked steadily. When the panel finally lifted, a small chamber was revealed. It was round and dark, lined with strange alien structures. Tubes ran along the walls, some broken, some still faintly glowing. The temperature was warmer here, almost tropical compared to the freezing workshop above. Then he saw them. 2 enormous eggs rested inside the chamber, their surfaces pulsing with a soft, golden light. They were bigger than any egg Arlen had ever seen, almost the size of a small human. He froze. His mind raced. The records he had found in alien archives hinted that creatures like this had existed once, but they were thought to be extinct. The eggs were fragile, yet full of life. He could see faint movements beneath the shells. Whatever was inside them was about to hatch. Arlen leaned closer. A small tremor ran through the eggs, and a tiny crack appeared on one of them. His scanner went wild, showing unstable life readings. He realized that the life support systems maintaining the chamber were failing. The eggs might not survive much longer without help. Panic rose in him for the first time. He had seen rare things before, but this was something beyond rare. These eggs were history, life that should not have been here anymore, and yet they were. He stepped back, trying to control his thoughts. Arlen knew he had to act carefully. He examined the broken systems and tried to figure out which controls still worked. The technology was advanced and alien, far beyond human design, but some parts were intuitive. He started rerouting power, carefully adjusting tubes and connectors, and watching the readouts. The eggs trembled again, and a faint glow bathed the room. Arlen could feel the life inside responding to him, as if it knew someone was trying to help. The sound of his own breathing filled the chamber. Outside, the wind howled across the empty moon, but inside, there was a quiet warmth. He realized he was the only one who could save them. The thought made him uneasy, but also determined. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as fragile or reckless. But here, now, his knowledge, his hands, and his courage were the only things between life and extinction. Hours passed like minutes. Arlen adjusted, repaired, and monitored the chamber. Every so often, a crack would appear in the eggs, and the pulsing light inside grew stronger. He felt a strange connection forming. They were not just creatures, they were living beings trusting him. And he could not let them down. Finally, As the first light of the moon hit the chamber's entrance, the eggs shook violently. Tiny fragments of shell fell to the floor. Arlen stepped back, heart racing. This was it, the moment of birth. Whatever came next would change everything. He did not know what they would be, or what the galaxy would think if it ever found out. All he knew was that the abandoned workshop, the one no one wanted, was now the birthplace of something incredible. Arlen knelt, staring at the eggs, ready for whatever emerged. He whispered to himself, almost as a promise, "I've got you. I won't let anything happen to you." The first crack widened, and a tiny, golden eye appeared. And then the room was alive. Arlen knelt in front of the eggs, his eyes fixed on the small cracks widening on their shells. Tiny fragments fell to the floor, revealing glimpses of golden scales that shimmered in the dim light. The air in the chamber felt warmer now, almost alive with energy. Every alarm and warning on his scanner blared at once, but he ignored them. He could feel the life inside, fragile but powerful, and he knew he had to act fast. He stepped closer, careful not to disturb the eggs. The first movement he saw was a slow, curling stretch from one of the creatures. Its tiny head pushed through the crack, and a soft chirping sound escaped. The noise was small, weak, but it was life. Arlen's heart raced. He had never seen anything like this. Alien records spoke of creatures called dragons, massive, intelligent, and thought extinct. These eggs must belong to them. Somehow, against all odds, they had survived here, hidden in the abandoned workshop. The second egg shivered violently, and cracks ran along its shell in jagged lines. Arlen realized the creatures inside were responding to him, or maybe to the warmth and energy he had restored. He adjusted the power again, rerouting energy to the life support systems. The reading stabilized, and the eggs pulsed with a soft golden glow. It was like watching a heartbeat through the shell. Arlen could not stop staring. A small fragment of shell from the first egg broke off completely, and the dragonlet inside slowly lifted its head. Its eyes were enormous for its small face, golden and shimmering like molten metal. It blinked at Arlen, almost cautiously, then curled back into the egg for warmth. The second dragonlet made a higher-pitched chirp and began forcing its way out, smaller fragments of shell scattering across the floor. The moment was mesmerizing. Arlen could hardly breathe. Every instinct told him to step back, but every human instinct that had ever guided him screamed that he had to help. He scanned the chamber, looking for tools that could aid the hatching process. Most of the machinery was alien, unfamiliar, but some panels responded to touch. He pressed buttons slowly, careful not to disrupt the fragile balance. The second egg finally gave way, revealing a dragonlet smaller than he expected, its wings folded tightly against its body. The creature was wet, trembling, and blinking against the light. Arlen reached out, hand hovering over it, unsure if the dragonlet would see him as a threat. It did not. Slowly, it stretched its tiny neck toward him and sniffed the air. Arlen exhaled in relief. This was unlike any animal he had ever encountered. Intelligent, aware, and aware of him. A bond seemed to form immediately, subtle but undeniable. He gently picked the dragonlet up, cradling it in his arms. Its skin was warm, soft, and alive, pulsing gently under his touch. The first dragonlet peered out from its broken shell, chirping softly as if calling for its sibling. Arlen placed the second dragonlet near the first, and they nudged each other. Their movements were awkward, fragile, and entirely innocent. They were small, but the life inside them was ancient, strong, and beautiful. Arlen realized the full scope of what he had found. These creatures were not just rare, they were the last of their kind. If they survived, it would change everything humans thought about the galaxy. The alien systems beeped again, warning him of structural instability. Panels on the walls flickered and hummed as if struggling to maintain control. Arlen's mind raced. He had to stabilize the chamber completely, or the eggs, and now the dragonlets, might not survive. He moved quickly, adjusting energy flows, rerouting circuits, and monitoring the life signs. Sweat ran down his face. Every step was a gamble, but he could not leave them alone. Not now, not ever. Outside, the abandoned workshop groaned in the cold wind. Dust fell from the ceiling, and faint shadows moved as the building shifted with the lunar quake tremors. Inside, Arlen focused solely on the creatures before him. He whispered softly to them, though he doubted they understood words. "I'm here. You're safe. I'll keep you safe." The dragonlets chirped back, tiny voices filled with trust and curiosity. Hours passed. The chamber slowly stabilized. Arlen managed to power up small environmental controls, giving the dragonlets warmth and oxygen. He fashioned a soft nest from old materials he found, broken alien padding, pieces of metal mesh, and fabric scraps. The dragonlets settled into it, curling close together. Their golden scales reflected the dim light in shifting patterns, like liquid sunlight. Arlen watched them, exhausted but exhilarated. He thought about the galaxy beyond this workshop. What would other species say if they knew dragons had returned? Most would react with fear. Many would want to destroy them. But Arlen did not care. Humans had a chance to do something different. To protect rather than hunt. To understand rather than fear. And he knew he could not fail. Not now, not ever. As night fell over the barren moon, Arlen sat beside the dragonlets, keeping watch. Their small breathing filled the room with life. He marveled at their resilience and fragility, how something so ancient could survive hidden for so long. He realized that he had discovered something far beyond treasure, far beyond technology. He had found life that the galaxy had forgotten. The first dragonlet moved closer to him, resting its head against his hand. The second nudged the first, then opened its tiny wings, flapping slowly. Arlen laughed softly. It was awkward, almost comical, but it was perfect. For the first time in his life, he felt a responsibility that mattered more than anything else. He was not just a human in a vast, uncaring galaxy. Here, he mattered. And so, in the abandoned alien workshop, the dragonlets that should not exist were alive. And Arlen, the human who had dared to buy what everyone else abandoned, became their protector. He knew the challenges ahead would be enormous, but for now, he simply watched, and marveled, and whispered promises that would guide him through everything to come. Arlen woke to the soft glow of the dragonlet scales. The chamber was quiet except for their small breathing and occasional chirps. He had stayed awake most of the night, adjusting the energy flow and keeping the environment stable. The dragons were fragile, but alive. He had made it through the first critical hours, but he knew the real challenge was just beginning. His scanner beeped urgently. A fleet had detected the energy spike from the chamber. Alien authorities, known for their strict rules about dangerous species, were on their way. The system warned that the area would be quarantined, and anything inside destroyed if it could not be contained. Arlen felt a tight knot in his stomach. If he did nothing, the dragonlets would die. He could not let that happen. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, but this moment would prove how different they could be. He paced the chamber, thinking quickly. The doors would not hold against an alien fleet. Automated turrets and security protocols were designed to keep intruders out, or destroy what they considered a threat. He could try to hide the dragonlets, but the energy readings were too strong. Someone would find them. Someone would act without thinking. Arlen knew he had to make a choice no one else would make. He would protect them, even if it meant facing the galaxy alone. He approached the control panels and began rerouting the remaining power. He bypassed security systems and reinforced the environmental controls. The dragons sensed the urgency and stirred, chirping softly, wings trembling. Arlen spoke to them in a low voice. "I won't let anything happen to you. You're safe with me." The dragonlets nudged each other, as if they understood. Their trust was fragile, but it gave him courage. The first warning came as a light flash on the scanner. A small fleet ship entered orbit. Its message was simple but cold: evacuate or be destroyed. Unauthorized biological life detected. Arlen smiled faintly, though his heart pounded. Destroy? They're just children, he muttered. The dragonlet's eyes blinked at him. He could not run, and he could not hide. He had to stand his ground. He tapped into the workshop's communication array. It was old, alien, and dangerous, but it worked. Arlen sent a simple signal, a log of the dragonlet's life readings and a single message: they are alive. They are not dangerous. Please wait. He knew the aliens might ignore him, but it was a chance, a small window to buy time. Minutes passed like hours. Outside, sensors detected more ships approaching. The chamber hummed with power as Arlen adjusted systems to handle both the dragons and potential intruders. He checked the dragonlets. The first nuzzled his hand, chirping softly. The second was flapping its wings, growing stronger by the minute. Life was fragile, but it persisted. Arlen felt a surge of hope. He was not just fighting for survival, he was fighting for trust. A warning blared. The alien fleet was preparing an energy scan. Any anomaly would trigger an automatic strike. Arlen realized he had to act fast. He rerouted more power to shield the chamber's energy signature. The screens flickered and alarms rang, but the system held. He could feel the strain in the machinery, feel it protesting. But it was enough. For now, the dragonlets were safe. Then came the hardest part: he had to face the reality of the galaxy. Most species would react with fear. They would see the dragonlets as weapons, or experiments, or threats. No one would understand that they were just young, vulnerable creatures. Arlen thought about humans. Humans often acted differently. They had compassion, curiosity, and courage. He realized this was why he had survived all his dangerous missions before. Humans did not always follow rules, they followed heart. And now, he would prove it. He stood in the middle of the chamber, arms crossed, watching the dragonlets. The first had fully emerged, golden eyes blinking at him, wings still folded. The second pushed itself upright, unstable but eager. He whispered again, "I will protect you, even if the galaxy comes for you. You belong to life, not fear." The words felt heavier than any starship battle he had ever faced, but they were true. The fleet began scanning. The chamber's shields held, but only barely. Lights outside flashed red, warning of detection. Arlen knew he had no choice but to present himself. He activated the main door. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped outside, the dragonlets cradled in his arms. The fleet sensors locked on him immediately. Aliens on the viewing screens froze, expecting a human foolish enough to bring a dangerous life form into their orbit. Arlen raised his hands and spoke through the universal translator. "They are young. They are not dangerous. Please, do not destroy them. I can protect them, and I can show you they mean no harm." Silence followed. He could feel the tension through the shields. Every human instinct told him this was insane. Every other species would have fired without thinking. But he had hope. Humans could make choices the galaxy would not make. Slowly, the fleet lowered their weapons. The leader's voice crackled through the comm system. "Unusual. Your logic is unexpected. We will delay action, but the life forms must be contained." Arlen nodded, relief washing over him, though he stayed cautious. He returned to the chamber, placing the dragonlets in their makeshift nest. Their chirps seemed brighter now, more confident. They had survived the first test, and so had he. The galaxy had made its choice long ago. It feared what it did not understand. Arlen had made a different choice. He had chosen life. He had chosen to protect the helpless, even when rules and logic said otherwise. And in that moment, the abandoned workshop was no longer just a building. It was a sanctuary, a place where humans could show that courage and compassion could defy fear. He sat beside the dragonlets, watching their tiny wings stretch and tremble. Outside, the fleet remained in orbit, waiting, observing, uncertain. Inside, life had returned. The dragonlets that should not exist were alive because one human had chosen differently. Arlen smiled softly. He did not know what would happen next, but he knew this: humans could change the rules. Humans could choose differently. And sometimes, that choice was all it took to protect life that the galaxy had forgotten. The dragonlets chirped softly, nudging each other, wings brushing against the warmth Arlen provided. He whispered one more time, "I will not fail you. Not now, not ever." And as the cold moonlight fell across the workshop, Arlen understood something profound. Sometimes, the hardest battles were not against weapons or armies, but against fear itself. And he was ready to fight it. The chamber was quiet except for the soft breathing of the dragonlets. Arlen watched them closely, fascinated. Their wings twitched, tiny claws gripping the makeshift nest he had built from alien scraps. He had never seen anything so small yet so alive. Their golden scales reflected the dim light, and their eyes, still half-closed, shimmered with a strange, gentle intelligence. The first dragonlet lifted its head fully and blinked. Its eyes were enormous and golden, like molten metal, and they locked onto Arlen's face. He froze for a moment, holding his breath. It was a strange, silent communication, the kind that did not need words. Arlen whispered softly, "It's okay. You're safe." The dragonlet tilted its head as if understanding. Then it slowly stretched its wings, awkwardly at first, flapping them gently. The second dragonlet made a small chirp, and the first chirped back. Their movements were uncoordinated but full of energy. Arlen realized they were learning, testing their new bodies. Their eyes followed his hands, their tiny claws reaching for him. A small smile spread across his face. Humans had always been observers and teachers in many worlds, and now, he was teaching life itself to survive. He reached out carefully, letting the first dragonlet sniff his fingers. It hesitated, then nudged him with its head. The second dragonlet followed, curling against his arm. Arlen felt a warmth unlike anything else. He had read about bonding in alien species, but this was different. These creatures, thought extinct, were choosing to trust him. And that choice was sacred. Arlen checked the chamber systems again. The environmental controls were stable, and the shields he had activated kept the energy signature low. The fleet outside remained in orbit, cautious but curious. He knew the galaxy would react eventually, but for now, the workshop was a safe haven. He wanted to make the most of it. He set the dragonlets down in the nest again and stepped back to observe. The first one flapped its wings more confidently this time, hopping awkwardly on tiny legs. The second followed, nudging its sibling and chirping a high-pitched sound. Arlen realized they were communicating with each other. Their intelligence, even at this early stage, was clear. Humans were often underestimated, but here, he could see that intelligence, trust, and emotion were universal. Suddenly, the first dragonlet looked at the door. Its head tilted, eyes wide, and a soft rumble came from its throat. It was a sound that felt like curiosity, almost a laugh. Arlen understood immediately, they were aware of the world beyond their nest. He knelt down slowly, speaking in a low voice. "It's all right. You don't need to be afraid." The dragonlet chirped again, then nudged its sibling. Together, they explored the nest, testing their wings and claws, flapping and hopping. Hours passed. Arlen stayed close, guiding them gently. He realized that the workshop was more than a shelter, it was a classroom, a place for life to grow safely. The dragonlets learned quickly, their instincts blending with the lessons he offered. Every movement they made, every chirp or rumble, felt like progress. He marveled at how delicate yet resilient they were. The alien fleet sent another message. This time, it was more urgent. Contain the creatures. Life forms are unstable. Unauthorized experiment detected. Arlen ignored it for a moment, focusing on the dragonlets. He could feel the trust between them growing. Humans often had to make choices the galaxy would not. Fear was easy. Compassion was harder. But now, in this quiet workshop, compassion was winning. The first dragonlet flapped its wings higher, hopping toward Arlen. It chirped loudly, almost demanding attention. He reached out, letting it crawl onto his shoulder. Its claws were tiny but firm, and it nestled there, head resting near his neck. The second followed, climbing over his arm to sit beside the first. Arlen laughed softly. They were curious, fearless in their own small way, and completely dependent on him. He realized something else. They were learning from his presence as much as he was learning from them. The way they watched, the way they reacted to his movements, it was almost like a mirror. Humans had always adapted, had always found a way to understand the unknown. And here, he was showing them that trust could be returned. The dragonlets were growing stronger, more aware, and more connected to him with each passing moment. The first one blinked at him again, golden eyes shining. Arlen whispered, "You're safe. I'll keep you safe. No one will harm you here." It chirped in response, a tiny sound full of life. The second dragonlet nudged the first, then nudged him gently, like it was asking for reassurance. Arlen smiled and nodded. "I promise." Outside, the moonlight crept through broken windows, illuminating the chamber. The dragons moved closer together, curling up but still alert. Arlen watched over them, feeling a quiet pride. They had survived the impossible, emerged from eggs that should have never hatched, and now they were awake, aware, and alive. He understood that the galaxy might not accept them easily, but that did not matter right now. For this moment, life had won. The first dragonlet fluttered its wings against his shoulder, and the second hopped onto the edge of the nest, exploring the room. Arlen followed their movements carefully, guiding them when needed but letting them discover. Every small action they took was a victory, every chirp a triumph. The abandoned workshop was alive again, filled with warmth, trust, and life. As the hours passed, Arlen realized the true miracle. These creatures, thought extinct, were not only alive, they were aware. They had opened their eyes to the world and chosen him as their guardian. And in return, he had chosen to protect them, to trust them, and to guide them. Humans had always made choices that others would not. Now, in this quiet chamber on a cold moon, that choice had created life. The dragonlets curled against each other, eyes blinking slowly, tiny wings tucked in. Arlen sat nearby, exhausted but happy. He knew the challenges ahead would be greater, but for now, he let this moment last. Life had returned. Trust had been earned. And the dragons, small and fragile though they were, had opened their eyes not just to him, but to a future full of possibilities. He whispered once more, softly, almost to himself, "You're safe. You'll never be alone." And as the golden glow of their scales lit the chamber, Arlen understood something simple but powerful. Sometimes, awakening life was not about power or strength. It was about care, patience, and courage. And he had all three. Arlen watched the dragonlets as they explored the chamber, tiny wings flapping, claws testing the alien floors. They were growing stronger, more confident with every passing hour. Their golden eyes followed him constantly, and he realized they had begun to understand him in ways no human had ever experienced before. The bond between them was clear: trust, curiosity, and something deeper that did not need words. The abandoned workshop, once silent and lifeless, had become a home. Broken alien machinery hummed with energy, powering life support systems that Arlen had carefully repaired. Strange lights flickered across the walls, reflecting off the dragon's scales and shifting patterns of gold and amber. The room was warm, safe, and alive. It was not just a building anymore, it was a sanctuary. He knew the galaxy beyond the moon would not accept this easily. Many would see the dragonlets as dangerous, unpredictable, or a threat. Ships had passed through orbit since their hatching, observing, scanning, calculating, unsure of what to do. But Arlen had learned something important. Humans did not always follow the expectations of others. Humans had the ability to choose differently. And his choice had saved the lives of creatures that had been lost to history. The dragonlets chirped softly, nudging each other. One flapped its wings and tried to hop, almost tumbling, and Arlen laughed. Their small mistakes, their awkward movements, were a reminder that life, even fragile life, could persist against all odds. He reached out, guiding one as it tried to climb a low table, and it responded with a small nuzzle. Every interaction, every tiny gesture strengthened their trust. Word began to spread slowly across nearby colonies. Observers could not understand how the dragons had survived. Some feared them. Some wanted to study them. But a few, mostly humans, began to see what Arlen had known all along. Life was precious even when it was unknown, even when it seemed dangerous. Humans had a role in the galaxy that other species did not. They could care when others destroyed, protect when others ignored. Arlen worked steadily, turning the workshop into a place fit for the dragons. Broken panels became feeding stations, tubes and vents were adjusted to control temperature and airflow, and small nests were built to let the creatures sleep safely. Each adjustment was a careful act, ensuring their growth while keeping them comfortable. The dragonlets responded immediately, chirping and moving around, exploring their small world with wonder. One morning, a small alien drone hovered near the workshop. It scanned the structure, paused, and then transmitted a message back to its fleet. Life form stabilized. Human caretaker confirmed. Observation recommended. The message was simple, but it marked a change. The galaxy had begun to see that these dragons were not a threat. They were part of life now. And Arlen, the human who had risked everything, had changed the rules. The dragonlets began to show new behaviors. They experimented with small flights inside the workshop, wings catching currents of warm air. They chirped in patterns, seeming to communicate in ways that Arlen could only partially understand. He watched them, fascinated. Their intelligence was remarkable, and their awareness of him was extraordinary. He realized that humans and dragons could create something rare, a partnership, a bond that no other species could replicate. As weeks passed, the workshop became known as the Sanctuary of Life among humans. It was officially recorded as a protected site, managed by a human caretaker. Visitors were limited, and safety protocols ensured the dragons would never be harmed. Arlen had created something bigger than himself, a place where life, thought lost, could thrive. The dragonlets, once fragile eggs, had become symbols of hope and resilience. The first dragonlet, now stronger and more agile, perched on Arlen's shoulder. Its golden eyes blinked at him, reflecting the room's warm light. The second dragonlet nudged him playfully, chirping excitedly as it practiced hopping and flapping. Arlen laughed softly, feeling a sense of pride and wonder. They were not monsters or weapons. They were life, and he had protected it. One night, as the moonlight filtered through the broken windows, Arlen sat with the dragonlets nestled beside him. He thought about the galaxy beyond the workshop, the species that feared, the fleets that watched, and the worlds that would never understand. Yet he also thought about humans, the ones willing to see, to care, and to act differently. Humans had the ability to change the fate of life itself. In this quiet chamber, that ability had made all the difference. The dragonlets stirred, chirping softly, and one reached out a tiny claw toward him. Arlen smiled and gently stroked its head. "You're safe now. Always." The creatures responded, curling closer, warm and trusting. The abandoned workshop, once a place of dust and silence, had become alive with hope, laughter, and trust. Over time, Arlen continued to care for them. They grew quickly, their wings strong, their movements confident. He trained them carefully, always gentle, never forceful. Observers occasionally arrived, curious about the sanctuary, and he showed them only what was safe and meaningful, the trust between human and dragon. Slowly, the galaxy began to learn a new lesson. Not all life needed to be controlled or destroyed. Some just needed protection and understanding. Years later, the workshop remained a quiet beacon. The dragonlets were no longer small and fragile. They were strong, curious, and wise beyond their years. Arlen still watched over them, but he also realized something powerful. Life could thrive even in the places everyone else had forgotten. The dragon's survival, their trust, and their bond with him were proof that humans could change the galaxy in ways other species could not. And so, the abandoned workshop, once lifeless and ignored, became a symbol. It was a reminder that courage, care, and compassion could protect what the galaxy thought lost. Life had returned, and humanity had made the difference. The dragonlets had opened their eyes to the world, and in doing so, had opened the galaxy to a new idea, that trust and kindness could be stronger than fear. Arlen looked at the dragons as they settled into their nests, tiny eyes blinking in the soft light. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "We've made it. Together." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by warmth, life, and trust, he knew the workshop was no longer just a place. It had become a home, a sanctuary, and a reminder that humans could do the impossible, save life when no one else would. The dragonlets chirped softly in response, wings folding against their bodies. Outside, the cold moon wind blew over the surface, but inside, the workshop glowed with life. Arlen smiled, exhausted but fulfilled. They had survived. They had thrived. And the galaxy, slowly and quietly, had begun to understand what humanity could offer: hope, compassion, and the courage to protect the future.